too. And then for England and Wales, a real mishmash with bands of showers moving northwards, but it won't rain all day. There will be some drier spells in between. And that wind, particularly for northeastern parts of England, coming in from a different direction and easing too in southeast Scotland. So that'll probably make it feel at least a bit warmer than today, whereas the cold wind continues in the far northeast. Plenty of showers coming in around this area of low pressure. You can see the swirl there, but bringing milder air with it. So 10 or 11 in the south with a bit of sunshine, and further north those temperatures a bit higher than today's values, and we'll have mostly lost that wind. It's still there though in the far northeast on Sunday. A few more showers coming into western Scotland by this stage. Elsewhere, again, a good deal of dry weather, quite murky, quite grey and misty to start Sunday. May brighten up at times, but as you can see, there will again be a few showers around. Goodbye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
We want you to set off on the destination of your dreams this year, as you could win an incredible holiday for two worth £10,000. Courtesy of Riviera Travel, you'll get to choose from 47 tours in over 30 worldwide destinations. We'll also give you £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure you really make a splash this summer.
For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, Britain. I'm Alex Armstrong. This is State of the Nation tonight.
I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you.
Can Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, survive another hit to his leadership? Of course, breaking this afternoon, police search 2 locations linked to Lord Peter Mandelson as they continue their investigation into misconduct over his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Also tonight.
A marriage between first cousins carries significant health issues, many of which aren't even knowable until post-birth.
First-cousin marriage sparks controversy once more after an NHS trust appoints a nurse to support the practice and...
We won't go until we stopped it. We won't go until we stopped it. We won't go until we stopped it. So stop it right now.
That's right, legal action has been launched in a bid to stop a controversial puberty blockers trial for children as young, get this, as 10 years old plus.
Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
Is it time society celebrates masculinity? State of the Nation starts right now. And what a panel I've got here. Joining me this evening, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, contributing editor at Novara Media, Michael Walker is also joining me. A huge hour coming up, but first we're going to get your news bulletins.
Alex, thank you. The top stories. Police are searching addresses in Wiltshire and Camden in North London as part of a misconduct in public office investigation launched into Lord Peter Mandelson. The force has said these searches are related to an ongoing investigation into misconduct in public office offences involving a 72-year-old man. They say he has not been arrested and inquiries are ongoing. It's as the Prime Minister remains under pressure from within Labour ranks over the Mandelson scandal. Sir Keir Starmer apologised yesterday to Epstein's victims for believing the peer's lies about his relationship with the paedophile financier. Meanwhile, former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner is said to be preparing a bid to oust Sir Keir as Labour leader. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch spoke this afternoon.
I think what the government is worried about, and Keir Starmer in particular, is that it will expose just how close Peter Mandelson was to his administration, of helping to appoint reshuffles, deciding who should be in the cabinet. I think that that's what they're really worried about, not the special relationship. And that's why I don't want to see any delay at all. We should get the files, especially those surrounding the vetting and the appointment of Peter Mandelson.
Serial killer Steve Wright has been sentenced to 40 years in prison for the murder of 17-year-old Victoria Hall in 1999. Wright is also sentenced to 12 years for the kidnapping of Victoria and 9 years for the attempted kidnapping of Emily Doherty. Wright is already serving a whole life sentence for the murders of 5 women near Ipswich in 2006. A summer camp leader who drugged children with sweets laced with a tranquiliser before sexually assaulting them has been jailed for more than 23 years. Leicester Crown Court heard 76-year-old John Rubin, who ran a holiday camp for at least 27 years, was arrested last year after several children were taken to hospital. Liquid Xanax was found to have been used on some of the victims at Stathen Lodge in Leicestershire. Rubin, who was labelled by his wife as a sadistic, monstrous paedophile, used the cloak of Christianity to carry out his sex attacks on vulnerable children. And a restaurateur has been found guilty of spiking a woman's drink with a date rape drug at a Mayfair private members club in a bid to overpower her for sex. 63-year-old Vikas Nath laced the woman's spicy margarita after she left him with the drink in the rooftop garden bar at Annabelle's. Southwark Crown Court heard Nath had grown frustrated with the woman's apparent reluctance to have sex with him prior to the spiking incident, and he took GBL in a vanilla extract bottle with him to the club. Prosecutors said his plan was to drug the woman and take her back to his home for sex when she'd been overpowered or stupefied. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, it's back to Alex.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Breaking tonight, police have searched 2 of Peter Mandelson's properties. This is very severe for this government. And before anyone rushes to judgment, let's do what this government rarely does. Look at Mandelson's record, because this isn't a man blindsided by one unfortunate headline. This is a man whose entire political career reads like a case study in ethical turbulence. Let's start in 1998. Mandelson, then the Trade and Industry Secretary in Tony Blair's shiny new government, he quietly accepted a £373,000 loan, interest-free, from fellow Labour Minister Geoffrey Robinson to buy a house in Notting Hill. He failed to declare it at the time. There was no criminal investigation, but the concealment was politically fatal for him. He resigned just before Christmas that year. Most political careers normally would end there, but exceptional times aren't we living in? His obviously didn't. In October 1999, he miraculously returned as Northern Ireland Secretary, overseeing implementation of the Good Friday Agreement. But by January 2001, he was gone again. Why? Because he had phoned the Home Office about a passport application linked to the Hinduja brothers, businessmen whose donation to the Millennium Dome raised serious conflict of interest concerns. Again, no criminal investigation, but the optics were, of course, devastating, and they cost him his job. Again, you would think 2 resignations might be the end of the story. Well, not for Mandelson. In 2008, he staged a 3rd comeback under Gordon Brown, becoming his business secretary and effectively the government's political fixer during the financial crisis. During that period, questions emerged over his relationship with Russian oligarch Oleg Deripaska, including time spent on his yacht. Mandelson denied wrongdoing. No breach was proven, but once again, the judgment raised serious eyebrows. Let's fast forward now to December 2024. Keir Starmer, the so-called forensic ex-lawyer Prime Minister, appoints Mandelson as Britain's ambassador to the United States, the most sensitive and prestigious diplomatic post in this country. Within 2 months, further disclosure in the Epstein files raised serious questions about Mandelson's past associations with the convicted paedophile. It then took 8 more months and further disclosures before, in September 2025, he was finally removed from the position. Then, February 1st, just a few days ago, just this year, new damning Epstein-Mandelson images emerge on the front page of national newspapers. Mandelson finally resigns from the Labour Party, which left many questioning if Keir Starmer should have forced it months ago. And on February 4th, 2026, at Prime Minister's Questions, again just this week, Starmer is pressed on what security vetting was done. He sensationally admits the Epstein connection had been disclosed to him before he appointed Mandelson. And now today, February the 6th, 2026, the Metropolitan Police execute search warrants at 2 properties connected to Mandelson. It comes, of course, as further files allege that Mandelson was discussing top-secret government information to Epstein. How on earth, after that litany of scandals I've just read out here today, has the Prime Minister thought for a single moment that it was fitting for Peter Mandelson to ever be appointed in that role or even to any government? Just without the Epstein bombshell, his record was bad enough. There's no question about it. Starmer, the once Puritan, must now resign in disgrace for his severe lack of ethical judgment. And some breaking news now. Sir Keir Starmer has warned a very significant volume of material will likely need to be reviewed in relation to Lord Mandelson's appointment as ambassador to the USA, but said the government wanted to ensure that Parliament's instruction is met with the urgency and transparency it deserves, in a letter to the Intelligence and Security Committee. All right, let's get the take of former editor of Labour List and advisor Peter Edwards, as well as my panel this evening, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, contributing editor at Novara Media, Michael Walker. Peter, I'll start with you. This is a damning indictment, in my opinion, on Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister's judgment. Without the Epstein stuff alone, it was pretty bad. How on earth can he remain as Prime Minister?
It's been a disastrous week for Labour, and we've got to admit that rather than hide behind it. I think the Prime Minister made a very severe judgment failure in appointing Peter Mandelson in the first place. The victims should come first, of course. That's why he apologised quite rightly in the speech this week. Clearly, if you like, there's a political implication. The world is now waiting on the disclosure of all these files. It looks like, down to WhatsApp messages. So we're probably talking thousands of messages within government about the appointment of Peter Mandelson. Clearly, sending Mandelson to Washington was the wrong thing to do. I hope the Prime Minister can survive, because although this was a mistake and although he's apologised, he took Labour from the brink of extinction, basically, back into government, delivering domestic policy changes that I support. But I think, as everyone in the parliamentary Labour Party has indicated this week, if you want Keir Starmer to survive as I do, that requires transparency. We've already had the apology, and I suspect another one might follow. And it also, really, in terms of taking the country forward, perhaps we need a bit of a pivot about the government showing its direction a bit more clearly.
OK, well, let me bring in Lizzie Cundy here. Lizzie, I just cannot see a man who, before the general election told us he was this pure and good man, and he was the exact opposite of Boris Johnson. I think this scandal makes what Boris did look like a walk in the park, quite frankly.
Let me tell you, this is the biggest political scandal, definitely in my lifetime. My mother's 91. She said it's the biggest in her lifetime. How did Keir Starmer be the only one that didn't see the Prince of Darkness was a wrong 'un? Who was doing the vetting? He's supposed to be this big lawyer with this forensic, eye for detail. How did he let this happen? And look, today we have the police at the door of the man he appointed, which has now brought massive shame to the door of the Labour Party and to this country.
Yeah, Michael, it's not looking good for the Prime Minister. At the end of the day, Peter Mandelson's record, as I've just delivered there, a litany of scandals before he was invited back into office again as the top diplomat of this country, should have been enough for any reasonable politician. If this was a Tory, the Labour Party would be calling for him to resign left, right and centre, wouldn't they?
I mean, I think there's two big issues that no investigation can overturn, which is, one, he appointed him when they knew that he'd had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein beyond him being convicted as a child sex offender, right? There's no inquiry that can change that simple fact. And two, he's trying to blame it on Peter Mandelson having lied to him. And as you say, this is a guy known as the Prince of Darkness. If you trust the word of someone known as the Prince of Darkness and get very upset and offended when they haven't told you the full truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, it says a bit more about your judgment than theirs.
Yeah, to come back to you, Peter, here, I've seen these screenshots of emails going around from MPs to support the Prime Minister this evening. That, to me, shows an inside campaign is working to try and keep the PM in his job because they're terrified he's about to have a rebellion from his own backbenchers, particularly one Angela Rayner, who really dug the knife into his back in Parliament the other day. How much longer, realistically, can he carry on for?
I think he can carry on, but at a moment of crisis, it requires a parliamentary Labour Party to be realistic with itself about the problems it faces. And, of course, it has been a very bad week for Labour, and sending Peter Mandelson to Washington was quite obviously the wrong thing to do. The vetting failed.
But it was so wrong, Peter. Yeah. It was so wrong that if this was Boris Johnson, you can't seriously sit here and tell me you wouldn't expect Boris Johnson to resign over it.
What? Boris Johnson had such a history. I never wanted him to be Prime Minister in the first place. But look, I want to answer your question rather than throw mud at the Tories. I think Keir Starmer can survive, and I hope he does, because I think there is still, on balance, enough support in the parliamentary Labour Party, which is about 400 MPs, to keep him in place. Obviously, it has been a very bad week. He's apologised. I suspect he'll end up doing it again. But we've got to bear in mind, so far, there are political consequences. So far, only literally a handful of Labour MPs have called on him to go. So Tony Blair survived very similar revolts on very different subject matters. We're not at a stage where you have dozens of Labour MPs calling someone to go. They're angry, as are the public, as am I. But so far, there are signs Keir Starmer can survive, and I hope he does.
Oh, no way. I'm sorry, you might not want this funeral, Labour might not want this funeral, but Keir Starmer is dead. He is finished. How can this country ever trust him? His lack of judgment in so many issues, and he will be remembered for this. Let me tell you, the Mandelson, this is the massive political scandal, and I'm afraid he should be ashamed today and do the right thing. And if he loved this country and loves his party, he should go and go now.
Yeah, Michael, are they going to hang on to Keir Starmer? So they've got someone to chuck under the bus when the local elections are a disaster. There's no point replacing him now when they know they're going to get a thumping anyway. And also, it would be pretty bad timing for them to remove a Prime Minister with so much politics happening in the country.
Well, I mean, I think kind of the issue with some of the points that, Peter, you're putting forward, with all due respect, is this idea that sort of Keir Starmer staying in place is in the best interests of the Labour Party. Now, Keir Starmer, before this scandal, was the least popular Prime Minister we've ever had. And there's lots of people saying, oh, there's not an obvious alternative. Well, there was an obvious alternative. It was called Andy Burnham. And Keir Starmer and his cronies explicitly blocked him coming back to Parliament for trumped-up excuses. So it could be the case right now that we've got a terminally unpopular Prime Minister, but, oh, thank God, there's a popular politician who people all over the country quite like, who's in there to replace him. But they decided, no, it's us or nobody.
But in doing so, he might have actually just saved his backside for a little while longer, right?
He saved his personal career for a little longer, but condemned the Labour Party, which is why it's so irresponsible.
Yeah, but you can't ignore the polls. Look at where they are. 15%. He's the most despised Prime Minister in history, I'd say. And they're polling. It's going to be on the floor by the time this saga is over.
Yeah, Peter, it's a good point, isn't it? He is the most unpopular Prime Minister on record, at least, and in recorded history, given the polls that have been out. Surely, actually, a change of leader might turn your fortunes around. The sooner you do it, you might even have a bounce before the mayor local elections. Is this not the right time to remove somebody who's deeply unpopular? The public won't have confidence in him to deliver tough legislation anymore. His backbenchers will be questioning every word he says. There's surely no way he can survive this.
Labour's polling is very, very poor. Keir Starmer's polling is pretty bad. So don't think for a moment that I'm here to defend the appointment of Peter Mandelson. I'm not. But I do think the Prime Minister can turn it round. We're going to go through this massive document release in the next few weeks. After that, I think what everyone from the country to Starmer's critics to the Parliamentary Labour Party want is a clear direction of travel economically and socially above and beyond NHS investment, which is vital. Keir Starmer needs to set out what his purpose is to the Parliamentary Labour Party and the country. That will help him get over what's been an absolute mess.
If I may challenge you, he's been in government for 18, 19 months now. If he's not laid out that vision now, let alone prior to the election, when on earth is he going to do it? And I just don't think that the British public will be able to trust a Prime Minister who has had such a lapse of judgment on this man. Like I said, without the Epstein files, the litany of Peter Mandelson's track record is absolutely severe. The images today of the police knocking on his door, what used to be the most senior diplomat in the country, it will be going down on Starmer's obituary. What if there is any way to turn this around for Labour, what does the Prime Minister need to be able to do here? Is there any chance?
Yeah, there is a chance. And yes, the events of this week have been unbelievably bad, almost unprecedentedly bad for Labour. What does Keir Starmer need to do to turn it around? I suspect, and it's a horrible phrase, but I suspect we're going to see some people losing their jobs, whether they're advisors or ministers, I don't know. I think the people who are supportive of Keir Starmer, what they want to see is a clear direction of travel, because before this week, there were still questions from the left about what is Starmerism. You know, the economic growth has been very, very slow to come. There's huge investment in the NHS and lots of other policy reforms, like setting up a nationalised energy company. But he's got to bring it all together, if you like, in one of those gut-busting speeches that Tony Blair used to do, saying, here's what I'm about, speaking from the heart. And again, it's probably going to start with an apology.
Michael?
I mean, I think you've made a good point, which is that he's been in government for 18 months, and if there isn't a direction now, where's it going to come from? And it's also not an accident they put Peter Mandelson as US ambassador. He's been a core part of this project. So Morgan McSweeney is Morgan McSweeney because of the tutelage of Peter Mandelson. Yeah. Keir Starmer's got his job because of Morgan McSweeney. Their whole project was how do we destroy and isolate the left? And they forgot to sort of think of anything else. So they did successfully defeat the left, found themselves in Downing Street, and all they could sort of think of to do was to appoint people soft on pedos to senior positions.
Yeah, but I think
it's not a good start.
Lizzie, just final thoughts for you. Do you think sacking someone like Morgan McSweeney, who's the chief of staff, you know, just an admin essentially to the Prime Minister, would be enough for the public to get over this?
Well, he's Mandelson's protégé, isn't he, really? And I think if McSweeney goes, Starmer has to go. There is no way they both can stay. One will go, the other will go.
It's very interesting, isn't it? And I think this has possibly killed the leadership ambitions of Wes Streeting as well, who's very close and friendly with Peter Mandelson. I think this has taken down a lot more than just the Prime Minister once we look back on it. But there we go. Look, GBNews has reached out to Peter Mandelson this evening. Lord Mandelson has previously denied wrongdoing related to Epstein, saying this: I was never culpable or complicit in his crimes. Like everyone else, I learned about the actual truth about him after his death. He also said he relied on assurances of his innocence that turned out later to be horrendously false. All right, still ahead on State of the Nation.
A marriage between first cousins carries significant health issues, many of which aren't even knowable until post-birth.
One NHS trust hires a nurse to help cousin marriage couples, but is it time we ban the practice altogether? Why on earth are we even having this conversation in 2026? That is up next on State of the Nation.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
First up, we've got Traitors. So probably now the biggest TV show in the country, and obviously a global hit as well. We've just been announced it's going to be a stage show coming sometime early next year, we think. And it's got huge prestige behind it. So Sam Mendes, who's major Hollywood director, Bond films, 1917, that incredible film, his company is behind it with All3 Media, which is the Dutch production company that originally created the Traitors concept. So a lot of backing behind it. We don't know which way it's going to swing yet, but the people that are, for example, director Robert Hastie, two of my favourite shows we were just talking about, Standing at the Sky's Edge, which is a very serious, dark show, and then Operation Mincemeat, which is an absolute lark silliness.
I have to say, my favourite show in the world, I've seen it 10 times.
Which one?
Mincemeat.
Oh, have you?
Yes. On Broadway and the West End.
Oh, wonderful.
Absolutely obsessed by it.
Yeah, it's incredible. So the talent behind all of this is really exciting. Whether we're going to have sort of jazz hands and key changes, I don't know. No cast yet. I would love to see Claudia actually breaking some moves, but I don't think we'll get anyone like that in it.
It could be a bit of a comedy, is what you're suggesting.
I think it's going to be veering towards the lighter side of it, highly entertaining. And they've promised, we keep getting twists every season. The one thing they have said is they will be following the format, but there will be surprises. So this one we're very much looking forward to. More news to come if you meet me up in the tower later.
Interesting. What else do you have for us?
So the next up, we've got HMS Pinafore, which is glorious. And there's a lot of people that feel that Gilbert and Sullivan can be a little bit stuffy, perhaps a little bit old-fashioned.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is you're deliberately avoiding my point.
Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to State of the Nation. Well, a Bradford NHS trust is recruiting a nurse dedicated to treating inter-family couples despite major calls to end the practice. The job, described as close relationship marriage nurse, will provide comprehensive care support to families who have recently had a baby and are close relatives. This includes cousins, uncles, aunts and other close relatives. Well, in the UK, marriage between many close relatives is illegal, but first current marriage remains legal in the country. So, is it time we banned this practice? Well, joining me now is commentator Khadija Khan. Khadija, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Should we be banning cousin marriage practice in 2026?
Thank you so much, Alex, for having me on the show. Let's see what we are talking about. We are talking about thousands of children across Britain who are living as best as they can with crippling neurological syndrome, unable to move without a wheelchair, let alone play football or any of the other sports their peers take for granted. Thousands more live with blindness, deafness, learning problems, or the routine failure of their lungs, livers, hearts, and kidneys. Their painfully shortened lives spent in and out of hospitals. Their genetic conditions are so rare that they are nameless in some cases. More yet are stillborn. And it is maddening to think that their young lives need not have been ruined in this way. These children are the offspring of cousin marriage, a sham tradition that is prevalent in British Pakistani communities more than most. It is preposterous to compare it with women smoking or drinking during pregnancy, nor does this have anything to do with their age. Every tragedy that I just mentioned comes about through a practice that is driven by deeply religiously and culturally traditions, beliefs, and alarmingly high level of illiteracy, something that the Labour Party seemed very relaxed about. And not to mention that the practice perpetuates a misogynistic culture, the extreme manifestation of which is honor killings. It perpetuates tribal mentality, clan culture, and the rampant sectarianism that we are witnessing up and down the country. So it is not to be excused or indulged as the NHS body intend on doing, and least of all, on the risible pretext that it had happened 500 years ago, that it should continue to have a place in modern day Britain. I think we are far better than this. It's time to ban this sham tradition.
Khadija, the opposition party, I believe it was Nick Timothy, put forward a bill to get rid of this practice and to outlaw it, but the government don't seem to be willing to play ball on it. Why do you think that is?
In my opinion, the awareness of the medical concerns can be an effective medium. I think this is what the Labour Party is pushing in political and social discourse. But what are they going to do about those who are educated and know all about it, yet they choose to do this cousin marriage for religious and cultural reasons? I remember BBC reported about a couple. They had 3 children. If I'm not wrong, they died due to the the problems that was as a result of this cousin marriage, and they were determined to have more children, believing that Allah will give them a healthy child, once he's pleased with us. So these kind of attitudes are so prevalent right now in certain section of British Muslim community. So what are we going to do about it? And when there is a talk about banning this tradition, I think we need to understand that there is a lots of resources being spent on the diagnosis, on the cure, and we need to set our priorities. We have to prioritize what we are going to do. We have to protect children. We have to protect the resources so that we can spend them in a better way. And I think when they say that this is just a way to destigmatize a community or a practice, I think this is not true. In my opinion, the Labour is very desperate to save their Muslim vote bank, and this is just a desperate effort to do so.
Khadija Khan, commentator there. Thank you so much for joining me this Friday evening. Appreciate your opinions here. Let me bring in my panel here. Michael, do you think that the Labour Party's pandering to the Muslim vote here? That's why they won't tackle the cousin marriage issue?
I mean, it seems implausible to me that that would be the reason, for a number of reasons, which is, I mean, it might surprise people. Cousin marriage isn't illegal in many places. So the Nordic countries, I think, have banned it. I think maybe Japan has. But most of the United States, most of Europe, and most of the world, in fact, doesn't ban it. Now, that's not... I don't really have strong opinions about whether... I think it's not good and shouldn't happen. With lots of not good things, you don't know whether banning it is the right thing to do or not. I suppose the argument is that if you ban it, then you can't encourage people to get genetic counselling or whatever. So, you come forward and say, will they have this genetic recessive disease or whatever? So the fact that the Tories didn't ban it after 14 years in government, the fact that loads of these other Western governments haven't banned it, suggests to me that there's been a cost-benefit analysis where they decided that driving it underground maybe does more harm than good. But
okay. Lizzie?
Well, I think the Labour Party do rely on the Muslim vote, and I think they're trying to save that vote.
But why didn't the Tories ban it for 14 years?
The Labour desperately rely on the Muslim vote. I do believe that is the case, and I do think that cousins having babies, we've seen what it does. It breaks my heart, the genetic disorders, the disabilities. It's cruel to me. And I most definitely think it should be banned, Alex. It breaks my heart when I see it.
Very, very briefly, do you think the NHS is not helping the situation here by investing resources directly into solving this issue? Is that pandering?
No, to be honest, I disagree with this attack on the NHS because, I mean, we have drug counsellors, right? The idea that you don't treat something because you don't agree with it, I think is wrong, right? We have people who treat people specifically who are taking heroin. Now, heroin is banned. If people are marrying their cousins and we need to support those kids, then the NHS should do that.
I know, but I mean, obviously, if you know, the NHS has to help these poor children, I'm not saying, you know, turn a blind eye, but, you know, we've got to look at what the NHS is doing, and it's a shambolic mess at the minute. You know, the taxpayers' money is £258 billion going into it. You know, 49% on that is staff and mismanagement, and I think that really needs a real overhaul.
Yeah, look, we haven't got enough time to dig more into this, but I do think there's a cultural... I think it says something about the failed nature of assimilation and integration in the country, and I think that's possibly the most damning part of all of this, is that we're having to spend this money, we're having to talk about all of this, because actually the multiculturalism in many areas isn't multicultural anymore. It is one culture, and it's not British culture. And I think that is a big problem we need to tackle. An NHS spokesperson does say this, though. The NHS is clear that having closely related parents can increase the risk of inherited genetic conditions and serious illness. This role is part of a small pilot which will test whether nurses with specialist training in these complications could help save and improve the lives of more vulnerable babies, targeted in an area where close relative marriage is prevalent. All right, still ahead on State of the Nation.
This is not easy and it is not a comfortable decision, and it's one that I wrestle with on a daily basis.
Campaigners have launched legal action to stop an NHS-linked puberty blocker trial. Should children as young as 10 years old really be part of these trials? That's next here on State of the Nation.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Further very heavy rain and strong winds in Spain and Portugal, likely to cause more flooding problems here throughout the weekend. Another spell of very heavy rain, especially across the south of Spain, where river levels are already running exceptionally high. There'll be some showers heading into Italy, also looking a little drier for Greece on Saturday with some sunny spells here, and we'll continue to see some sunshine across the Canaries through the weekend and into the early part of next week, with temperatures rising a little bit here too.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Evening, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. If you're looking for a change in the weather this weekend, I can offer you something maybe a little less wet, a little less cold, but there will still be showers around thanks to this area of low pressure. It's been bringing plenty of rain through the day. These weather fronts slowly arcing northwards. Still some snow over the tops of the Scottish mountains, but as milder air is tracking northwards, it will be turning more and more to rain. Still a cold wind blowing, though, into some of these North Sea coast, but the wind's changing direction further south. Something a bit drier for a time, but then more heavy showery rain coming into the southwest. Temperatures mostly staying well above freezing, 7 or 8 degrees to start the weekend across the south. But yes, there's more showery rain tracking in here too. Still got this nagging wind bringing moisture and lots of cloud to Aberdeenshire. Mostly rain by this stage, but more rain falling onto very soggy ground could cause some problems. Bit of shelter in western Scotland again, so largely dry here. A few showers still in Northern Ireland, but things are turning a bit drier here too. And then for England and Wales, a real mishmash with bands of showers moving northwards, but it won't rain all day. There will be some drier spells in between. And that wind, particularly for northeastern parts of England, coming in from a different direction and easing too in southeast Scotland. So that'll probably make it feel at least a bit warmer than today, whereas the cold wind continues in the far northeast. Plenty of showers coming in around this area of low pressure. You can see the swirl there, but bringing milder air with it, so 10 or 11 in the south with a bit of sunshine, and further north those temperatures a bit higher than today's values, and we'll have mostly lost that wind. It's still there though in the far northeast on Sunday. A few more showers coming into western Scotland by this stage. Elsewhere, again, a good deal of dry weather, quite murky, quite grey and misty to start Sunday. May brighten up at times, but as you can see, there will again be a few showers around. Goodbye.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to State of the Nation with me, Alex Armstrong. Well, campaigners have launched legal action to halt a controversial NHS trial involving puberty blockers for children as young as 10. In December, the group sent a letter to regulators, the government, and the trial's researchers calling for the study to be stopped. They've now launched a High Court legal challenge to halt the trial, arguing that approval for it was granted unlawfully and should be overturned. The £10.9 million trial is set to recruit more than 220 children aged 10 and 16 who have been diagnosed with gender dysphoria. This means they believe their sex and gender do not align. A number of high-profile names, including author J.K. Rowling, have criticised the trial, calling it an unethical experiment on children who can't give meaningful consent. So I'm asking, should the controversial trial be stopped? And joining me now is human rights campaigner and director of the Peter Tatchell Foundation, Peter Tatchell. Peter, thank you for coming in this Friday evening. These campaigners have now launched legal action. They're trying to overturn this. What do you believe should be done?
Well, first, let's say the priority has got to be the health and welfare of young trans children. That's the starting point. If you oppose this trial, you're anti-science. You're opposing legitimate medical research. And as a result of the Cass report by Baroness Cass, she recommended there was a trial. And she said that even without the trial, she acknowledged that there were many doctors and parents who attested to the benefits of puberty blockers for young trans kids. I don't think politicians or campaigners have any role in this issue. The prescription of puberty blockers should be entirely up to doctors and parents in consultation with trans children. And then it's also really important to remember that trans young kids are not the only ones who get puberty blockers. Puberty blockers are prescribed as safe by the NHS for non-trans children who have early onset puberty. So if it's safe for them, why isn't it safe for trans kids?
Peter, I mean, I'm sure the audience know my views on this, and I think you might know my views on this, Peter. I don't think any child has the ability to consent to a medical experiment that will fundamentally change their life forever. And I'm so desperately concerned for those children. Kira Bell, who I've actually had on one of my shows before, this is just a quote from her. She said, "I wish the NHS challenged me more before I transitioned." She obviously regrets that decision. How on earth can a child consent to this practice? And do you not think that in 10 years, 20 years' time, the government is going to face lawsuit after lawsuit from these kids who will say, I was failed by the government for putting me through an experiment I didn't understand the consequences of?
Well, it's not an experiment. It's established procedure. As I said,
But it is an experiment.
Puberty blockers have been prescribed for decades for young non-trans kids. They're safe and they're reversible. They're not irreversible, but they won't change a person's life forever. They can be stopped and then the person resumes puberty. It's really important to remember that young trans kids and their parents attest to the benefits. And there are thousands of young trans kids and parents around the world who say that puberty blockers have improved their mental and physical health.
But there's so many where it hasn't, Peter. And is it worth one child's life being destroyed in order for the rest of those kids to wait until they're of age, where they can consent? You don't give children cigarettes. There might be kids out there who go, I love smoking cigarettes, it makes me feel great. There might be parents who think, actually, I don't mind giving my child alcohol. That doesn't mean they are the right decisions. Yeah, but we have legal boundaries for the age of consent and the age of being an adult for a reason, and that's because you are of sound mind when you've developed your brain and everything has grown properly, as science tells us, and you can make that decision. This decision will impact those children's lives, and it will change their bodies, and it will stop them from growing as normal functioning adults would at that age, through teenage years, through puberty, and that will have a massive detriment to some of those children who will never be able to reverse it.
Well, cigarettes and alcohol are harmful. Yeah. Puberty blockers are not.
You don't think stopping puberty is harmful?
No, not under clinical procedure.
It's against the biology of your body, Peter.
Why would
it's
a doctor?
Be damaging.
Why would all the specialist doctors consent and approve it if they thought it was harmful?
Some don't. Some doctors don't.
They would never do that.
Some doctors say this is an abhorrent practice. Not every doctor does.
No, the majority of doctors and medical associations...
In that specialism, yes, of course they're going to say.
No, the majority of medical professional associations in this country say that puberty blockers are legitimate if a doctor thinks it's the right for that child. And, you say, how can a child consent? Well, a child cannot consent to a heart operation at a young age or a cancer treatment.
So that's a matter of life and death.
We let the
But Peter, you cannot compare a gender transition which won't kill them, but
it's not a gender transition.
The start of a gender transition, which is what puberty blockers are designed to do.
It's a temporary delay.
Yes, a temporary delay, which by many people who have retransitioned back to their original gender and sex have said has damaged and destroyed their lives.
That was because
the difference is you can't compare a heart attack or having a heart operation, which that child will survive through, to an operation which will not kill them, but will end up changing their bodies in a way that they don't understand.
Well, first of all, no child should be pressured into any kind of gender treatment. I agree with that. But if a doctor decides and the parents decide that it's appropriate, it's up to them, not politicians or campaigners. And let me just say that, when it comes to the long-term effects of puberty blockers, we've got not thousands, but tens of thousands of young people who have been through it around the world and who have benefited. The number of people who regret it is tiny. According to all the different studies in different countries, between 1% and a maximum of 2% have expressed regret, which is the same figure for any medical procedure. So it's not fair to say that there's this huge backlash of people who were forced into it. There were some who may not have been given sufficient advice, and I deplore that. I condemn that. Yeah. But for the most part, it's very carefully and very cautiously applied, as Baroness Cass herself said.
I just want to ask you one more question, just before we have to move on. Do you think there's any chance that there are parents who are politically ideological about this issue that might want their child to go through this and therefore push their child into this puberty blocker trial? Do you think there's any chance of that happening, Peter?
Almost zero. And on top of that, no child will participate in this trial without the child's consent, without the parents' consent, and without the doctor's consent. So there are three levels of consent. And if a parent does not want their child to go through it, their child will not go through it. Okay. It'll be purely voluntary, not compulsory.
Peter, I think we'll be having this conversation in 10 years' time and you'll say, well, I'll say, I told you so. There were kids who'll say their parents pushed them into it. There are kids who say they wish they never happened. There'll be kids suing the NHS. There'll be kids suing the government. There'll be kids suing Wes Streeting. I believe that's what's going to happen, but we can have that conversation in 10 years.
Most parents do not want their children to go into gender-affirming care. They delay it and delay it. It's only as a last resort when they see the mental harm and the physical harm caused by the lack of puberty blockers that they agree with their doctors.
Thank you for coming on and having a hearty debate about this. I'm sure we'll be talking more about it. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Peter. Still ahead on State of the Nation.
Mr. Doss?
Is it time we celebrated masculinity? We'll debate that next on State of the Nation.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray,
are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Is it time we celebrated masculinity in Britain? According to The Spectator's Lara Brown, it should be arguing civilization would be broken without real men. Take former police officer Ned Donovan, who apprehended a pickpocket only to be violently assaulted, with the attack left uninvestigated for months. Or consider the heroic bus driver who chased down a thief who'd stolen a woman's necklace, only to be sacked for his bravery. It's time we shift away from the notion of toxic masculinity and instead celebrate heroic masculine acts. Well, she's joining me. Lara Brown's here, the author of that article, the commissioning editor at The Spectator, Lara Brown. Thank you very much for joining me. Lara, tell me more.
Of course. So I wrote this piece because I was very moved by Otten Appleby's story, which I'm sure you guys have covered. Heroic Australian young boy who swam for several miles, completely unassisted in awful conditions against massive waves. He was motivated by desire to save his family and his siblings and get help who've been stranded canoeing in Australia. And I was reading his interview with a journalist, and he talked about the effort that he'd made to banish negative thoughts from his head and the focus that he put on thinking about God, but also thinking about Thomas the Tank Engine, anything happy, so he wouldn't get depressed with the difficulty or the stress of the journey. And then I thought about a lot of the rhetoric we've seen from politicians over the last year about toxic masculinity. And there's an interesting parallel between how Austin behaved and his bravery and the behaviour we've tried to demonise. I think it is quite a difficult time to be a man right now, this Labour government wants, by the end of Parliament, every single child in school to be taught about toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
And when I look at the resources they're deferring to, you can look at the BBC's page designed for schools, they described needing to be strong and goal-focused, dialed up, as toxic masculinity, a harmful trait. There was a very big research paper published by the American Psychological Association, and they talk about stoicism and competitiveness as harmful masculine traits that we should stamp out. And I'm not saying that being feminine is negative. I'm not saying that all men should act like this, but I think it's time that we recognise that men stepping in to save women, who I think we have to accept are more vulnerable to violent crime, who might be preyed upon by criminals, is a good thing.
Absolutely.
We should celebrate Ned Donovan, we celebrate Mark Mayher. I mean, Mark Mayher lost his job after saving a woman from having her necklace stolen.
It's totally bonkers. It really... actually, there's a young man, John Rudat, who's from America but lives in Germany, who stepped in to help save a woman who was being assaulted by two men on a bus, I believe it was, in Germany, and he didn't get any praise at all from this. Only recently he's actually started to get some praise for his work. I'll bring it over to you guys. Do you think we need to stop this? Actually, have you got a masculine hero?
I've got a couple. I'm sitting next to them. I do. Listen, I love Sean Connery and I love Pierce Brosnan, but I actually was in a James Bond film.
You were, weren't you? Yeah.
When he was, we were actually both naked, and my legs were wrapped around him. I had to squeeze him to death, and he was very masculine, very hairy. He was like an otter. But I love it, you know. And I think we forget our heroes. You know, they're trying to make James Bond be maybe a woman or maybe gay. That's not the way James Bond was written, and I think it's a real shame that we can't have our heroes. Look, my phone was stolen in Richmond the other day, and a guy ran after the person and saved my phone. He was a hero. Yeah. And why stamp that out? Yeah, let's embrace it.
Michael?
I mean, I think there's a bit of a false dichotomy, potentially, imagine.
Well, with us, sitting with Lizzie, calling us heroes, that is.
I mean, between... So I know you're sort of saying that, they're saying go into the schools and tell them about toxic masculinity. I actually used to go into schools and give these workshops on masculinity.
It's all your fault then, Michael. It's all your fault.
We didn't tell anyone about toxic masculinity. What it was sort of a bunch of men would go in, you'd talk to the boys, and then you'd have like just these incredibly entertaining workshops where everyone would sort of like say rude words, and then you'd talk about relationships and scenarios. And it was actually about positive masculinity. Oh. So I think more people are trying to do positive masculinity than is sometimes made out. Okay. And I would guess that this Labour policy about going into schools actually is less negative than you're making it out.
But Laura, can I briefly just tell you what I think masculinity should be about? British gentleman culture. I think that was the best version of masculinity because it wasn't too toxic at all. It was all about being there for women and looking after them, but also being a proper man. What do you think of that?
I talk in the piece about the popularity of Bridgerton. It's the most watched thing on Netflix whenever it comes out. People love the books, people go mad for it. People pay hundreds of pounds sometimes to go to Bridgerton experiences and try and live in that age. And obviously, there's lots of things about Bridgerton England that weren't good for women. But it's interesting that so many women seem to be attracted to the men who are presented, who sometimes defend women's honour with violence, who live by very, very strong, strict moral codes, and who do exhibit traits of stoicism. I think those are good things. I think we have demonised a lot of masculine traits.
Okay. All right, listen, Lizzie, Michael, Lara, thank you all so much for joining me this evening. Up next is Patrick Christie's. Patrick, what's coming up on your show?
Yes, well, I'm joined this evening by my live studio audience. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for everyone who has made the journey down here on a Friday night. There's loads on. Keir Starmer's on Resignation Watch. Do we think this is the end for him?
I hope so.
Oh, I hope so. We'll see. But of course, who comes next? Is it old Angela Rayner? Could it be Mastermind David Lammy? Could it be Red Ed Miliband? I mean, I don't know. So better the devil you know, isn't it? So we're going to be talking about all that and much, much more. We've got Rupert Lowe's grooming gang inquiry that we're going to be talking about. Wes Streeting looks like he's going to pay the doctors off as well, so that's good. Where's the money coming from? And of course, Bradford as well. Lovely part of the world, fantastic. Another employing specialist cousin marriage incest nurses. So that's enriching. All right, all that and more coming your way.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption.